Hey Zwifters, welcome back to No Breakaways, your source for all the Zwift racing tips and tricks. This is part 2 of the race breakdown with Scott Gleason and Devin DiStefano. If you missed part 1, go ahead and click right up here and you can check it out. All right, let's get into it.
Next up, we have Scott's race. It's one of the 3R series at the Innsbruckring, 2 laps of the Innsbruckring. And Scott, if you don't mind, maybe take us through this course. It is actually flowing clockwise. You can see the leg snapper over on the left. But yeah, take us through it, Scott. What are the key points? What are you looking at?
Yeah, so Innsbruckring, 100% of the race is the leg snapper. It terrifies certain riders just because it's about a 45 to 50 second, basically all out effort. And to be honest, that leg snapper suits me extremely well because it's a sprinter type effort. These lighter riders that have a harder time, holding, big power numbers because there's still a large draft going up the leg snapper that it's so easy to fall off and lose the draft. And when you're going, 13, 14 miles an hour and the pack in front of you is going 16, it's so easy to lose wheels. And because the downhill right after that is so fast that you can open up a 5, 6, 7 second gap that you're never going to close, just because the pack's going so fast. So it's all about the leg snapper, how you approach it, and how you ride it.
So the first thing we're going to cover is the start. Starting at the orange arrow, there's a couple turns. But Scott, why don't you walk us through what's going on, what you're looking to do? It's a fairly large field, maybe 35 riders. What are you looking to do here at the start?
Yeah, so I actually enjoyed the start of the Innsbruckring because it's a slight downhill after the banner. So you don't have to go as hard. So you can see I'm hitting over 400 watts just to kind of stay with the pack. If anything, I'm going backwards as well because I know there's a slight downhill that I'm going to use my momentum as a heavier rider to kind of get towards the front. And I know it's never going to go out too hard in the Innsbruckring because, again, so many people are afraid of the leg snapper. So your overall power numbers are pretty low in regards to, other races. And so I know that, it's going to calm down really quick because these riders know what's coming. And if they overexert themselves right now, they're going to pay for it at the leg snapper.
So, you said a really interesting thing there, Scott, that maybe let's talk about a little bit more is that, and something I've never thought about, is that people are going to go out easier on different courses because of what's coming. I've only thought of that like in terms of a 100K race, but you're saying because of the leg snapper. You've seen that in a lot of places.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's why I like this course so much because, as a bigger rider with a low watt kg average, I can draft in the pack at 250 watts, when everybody else is doing 300, way better than say a flat out crit city course where everybody's doing 380, 380 watts, and I'm just holding my threshold just to stay with them. Whereas because they know there's no big, real strong effort that they're going to have to make. And so they can keep the pace high. And that's why I really like the Innsbruckring because after that first leg snapper, things seem to calm down really well. And I've always thought, who's going to be the one to really take Innsbruckring on and make it extremely hard race because you can do it, but it's so hard because those efforts are coming and you have to have so much, energy to get over those climbs.
Yeah. So speaking of the leg snapper, let's get right into it. Here we are. This is it. So we're going to watch Scott's video from the orange to the blue, a little bit down the downhill. Yeah. So let's get right into it.
Yeah. So you can see I'm kind of dangling off the back. I'm still in the draft. I'm in 49th right now. But I know kind of the effort that's going to be required. And for me, it's all about accelerating through the field. You see a lot of people want to fade climb this, but it's too short and too punchy and too powerful to really allow that to happen. So I've noticed that I do best when I'm kind of at the back and I can kind of tail gun it through the field to get towards the front because I know I have the big power numbers and I know the draft's going to be pretty high. So I usually start my effort right about here. You can see it start getting up, to the 400 or 500 watts. and then it's an all-out effort. You're going to get to 100. I'm going to get to 180, 185 beats a minute, and just dying to get over to the crest over it to where I can freewheel down.
Yeah, I'm looking very enviously at your power numbers right now. So you're getting up out of the saddle. What are you looking at with these other riders? I mean, how are you trying to gauge yourself by the riders at this point right here?
Well, so I know it's a 2-lap course, so I know both leg snappers are going to mean everything in the race. And 2 leg snappers, I can do that pretty well. So I know if I can whittle the field down, this race is a race of attrition of who can get over it in time. And so just hit them kind of as hard as I can and know I'm going to recover right here, because this is a huge spot right here. If Innsbruckring did not have this downhill, I would struggle on this course tremendously, because I get my heart rate up so high, and then I'm able to recover on the downhill because I know it's there.
I do have a question. Scott, do you always will you try to hammer it at the top and then try to coast that first little section there?
Yeah, so as I'm cresting over the top, a lot of people will just kind of shut off the gas right there. But if you can hold it for maybe 2-3 seconds to get to that -5, 6, 7% grade, to where, it's not a whole lot of power, it's maybe 350, you're going to go so much faster on the downhill. Whereas the riders that kind of stop, they may have to make a bigger effort on the downhill to get back on. And I'm trying to recover as much as possible. I don't want to have to go any harder than I have to. So I've always learned, crest and just everything in your body is telling you to turn off the power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep it going for another second or two and just really get that speed going. And again, I'm a big rider, so any downhill favors me tremendously. And I know I'm going to go faster than, say, a 68 kg rider.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like he's picking on you there, Devin.
Yeah.
I wish I was 68 kgs, you know how much better a racer I'd be?
I'd be much better sprinter if I was 80, so.
All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is drafting. And this is something, we talked about a little bit earlier, but Scott, being a bigger rider, when I watched his race, is just a master at this. And, it's interesting because it's kind of different from what Devin was talking about earlier too, where Devin kind of tries to get up front, stay up front a little bit more. It seems like Scott tries to hang around at the back. So let's take a look at the clip. Scott, if you would just kind of walk us through what you're thinking here, what you're trying to do, how you're trying to keep your watts.
Again, the Innsbruckring is a tough course, and so I know a lot of these riders right now are pretty gassed after a tough leg snapper, and I know someone's probably not going to go off the front this early on, so I'm just kind of sitting around that 290, 280, call it a tempo effort in terms of my FTP, and just kind of staying with the pack, staying somewhat sheltered from the wind, and just trying to recover as much as I can. I can usually recover pretty well at, say, 300 watts, to where I get my heart rate down to the 150s. And if I can have my heart rate around the 150, 155, I'm such a better racer. It's when I'm up in the 170s, 180s for, extended periods of time, I have nothing left for the sprint, and I know that. So I have to try to recover as well as I can.
Are you looking at your heart rate when you're racing?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And some people say that's a limiter. And I kind of had some heart rate, issues with this race. The connectivity kept going in and out for whatever reason. But yeah, I'm probably too cognizant of my heart rate, which probably is a limiter to me, because I see it at 190 going up the leg snapper, and I'm like, I'm gonna die if I keep going at this effort. And so I'm definitely very aware of my heart rate, most times during the race.
Yeah, that's interesting. In the previous episode, we were talking to Adam Zimmerman about it, and he said he literally puts tape over his heart rate during a race so he doesn't look at
it. Yeah, he's a better man than I am.
Are you looking at it too, Devin, when you're racing?
Yeah, for me, it lets me know how I'm feeling. I mean, if I'm looking up my max heart rate is much lower. Usually 179, if I hit 180, I'm hurting. But if I'm down in the 150s or even 140s, I know I'm not working hard enough. And I got a little more. But if I'm coasting along and I'm at 175, 180, I'm in trouble.
The next one we're going to talk about is what I labeled Bridge Hill. This is a place where I'm not really sure, and I'm looking for some input from you guys. Can breaks happen here? What do you think of this hill? What are you looking at when you're looking at this hill?
Yeah, definitely. There's always people that ramp it up quite a bit, kind of at that right hand turn, knowing that little hill's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a lot of the really strong riders in Zwift that want to get me out of the race because they know I'm a big sprinter, they're going to hit it really hard up this little hill because they want me to struggle as much as I can before the leg snapper. There's guys that'll hold 6-7 watts a kilo up that bridge area, and I'm holding 420 430 watts just hanging on, trying to not letting me recover. So the real good racers that know how to get sprinters out of the field will hit this area really hard because they know there's a slight downhill coming up to where they can even recover before the leg snapper as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's also interesting tactics on how to maybe attack some of the field for lighter riders. If you see a big sprinter in the field, I guess I've never even thought about it. I just always thought about trying to conserve watts there. So let's.
I'm right there with you. I'm trying to conserve as much as I can, but a lot of times, certain riders in Zwift, when I know I'm signing up for a race and I see them in it, I just get so mad because I know they're going to make the race so hard, and they're going to try to shell me at all costs. And it's just a matter of, all right, I'm going to hold on as long as I can, and get over all the hills and all the leg snappers and try to get to the finish with a decent enough amount of energy to where I can play to my strength, which is my sprint.
Yeah, well, if I increase my 20-minute power by 1 watt per kilogram and my sprint by about 8, I might be there trying to do that to you, Scott, sometime. So small goals like that. All right, well, let's take a look at Bridge Hill, and Scott, walk us through what you're seeing, what you're thinking.
Yeah, so you can see my heart rate's kind of sitting around that 146, which for me is fantastic. That means I've good legs. I haven't hit it too hard yet. We're still 15 minutes into the race. And again, you can see my heart rate monitor just dropped to 112, so that's definitely not right. But it's just about kind of staying with the group, staying with the pack, knowing there's a slight downhill coming up on the right-hand turn where I know I'll accelerate through the field and get back towards the mid-pack to front. So it's just a matter of holding my effort, maybe a threshold effort around, 380, 390, and just staying with the pack as much as I can and making sure there's no flyers going off. I actually have a teammate in this race that we work pretty well together at. So usually when, in team races, you have other people shutting moves down and trying to keep me as fresh as possible.
Yeah, so maybe a couple questions there. It looked like in that clip, those people did. If you want to beat Scott Gleason, they did the exact wrong thing.
Yeah. So again, that's like my MO. I'm the best sprinter. I physically know I can put out the watts if I'm fresh towards the end. The way to get rid of Scott Gleason is make the race as hard as possible because they know I'm going to be holding 380, 390 just to get to the end. And I notice if my average power is around that 370, 380 for an entire race, my sprint is just it's a struggle to hold over 1,000 watts. But if I'm going to the line and my heart rate's at 140, 145, it hasn't been a hard race, I know I can uncork a massive sprint and beat most people at the line.
Awesome. Well, there you go, Devin. So for the USA National, if you want to beat him, you better. That's what you better be doing.
I have a feeling that one might be a little hard of a race.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, if you can dictate the pace at USA's, you're doing something right.
And I mean, I look at the invitational race that I raced on the Champs-Élysées. It's 6 laps, and my average power was 377, and I was at my limit towards the end. Actually, the whole race basically, and it was a struggle to hold over 1,000 watts for normal 15, 16 seconds. So if I can have my watts around 340, 330 as an average, I'm such a better sprinter because I'm that much more crisp.
Yeah. But even looking at that race, I mean, I think it speaks volumes to kind of the power profile you have is almost being perfect for Zwift, because what happened in that race, it was so fast, but still you end up fifth in that field, right? Which is unbelievable. So to try to ride you off a wheel, people are going to ride themselves out,
But again, it goes to the course. The Champs-Élysées, it just has that basically a 2-minute hill to where, I'm a punchy enough rider. I'm just, I can hold over my threshold for, call it 3-4 minutes really well. Once it gets beyond that, that's when I start to struggle. Like up Fox Hill, forget about it. I got no chance.
Mm-hmm.
But, something like the leg snapper, something like, the hills on the London Classic course, I have no problem getting over those because, again, they're 45-second to a minute hills. And I'm a punchy enough rider to get over those.
So the next thing we're going to cover is the sprint into the finish. This, at least to me, it seems like a really long, drawn-out sprint. And I'm not sure if there's multiple ways you can approach it. But let's cut to the clip. And Scott, you tell us a little bit about what you're looking at, what you're going for.
Yeah, I actually kind of struggle with this sprint because it's such a long flat. There's always somebody that tries to go off the front, and I'm, on my limit just to stay with the group and kind of uncork a good one. And so there's not really any markers or anything that I look at just because it's a kind of a deceptive sprint. I kind of wait and see what the field's doing, who's going to go early, who's going to, try to come late. And so it's all about timing on this one with the field you're in. There's no one, set marker that I'm like, I'm going to go here and, it's a good effort because the sprint will change every single time I ride it because it's, like you're watching right now, you have 2 riders off the front and I'm holding 500 watts just to try to get back to them so I can even contest the sprint. So it's such a different effort because of the way this sprint is laid out. And again, I struggle with it. I don't, have the magic formula as to when to go. I just kind of wait and see when the rider's going to go. And you can see right here, somebody's about to go. I see the red numbers pop on the right. And that's when I know I need to start my effort because I'm going to grab his draft and, try to just hit it as hard as I can, get to the line as fast as I can. And see how it goes.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe a couple points and a couple questions I have, and Devin, jump in whenever you feel like it. But so, like at this point here, when you see these two guys pulling away, how nervous are you that they're going to get away? I mean, are you thinking, I better pull them back?
You can just see where I'm at. So I'm at the front. So when you're at the front, it's an incumbent upon you to pull, right? If I hit 100 watts, 200 watts, that just extends their break just a little bit longer. And so because I'm at the front, it's my responsibility to continue the momentum, continue hitting it to where it doesn't go to 4, 5, 6 seconds. Right now it's probably at 1 or 2. So it's still in that time frame where, any big sprint's going to bring those guys back. And you can see we're still going 48, kilometers an hour. So we're not going at the 50 to 51 that we normally go at. So we know we can ramp our effort a little bit and we'll catch them before we have to open up our sprint.
Scott, if you get an instance like that and you're off the front and there's, say, nobody off the front and you float to the front, will you let off a little bit, or will you just go no matter how far out you are? Maybe.
No, I noticed taller riders are kind of disadvantaged in Zwift. We hit the draft a little bit maybe harder than others. So if I'm on the front, I will never win a sprint. If I go first, meaning, 20 seconds out and I just go for it, I'm going to drag the entire field with me and they're all going to go by me. So I have to be very strategic when I time my efforts to not hit the front so early, and only hit the front really with 5, 6 seconds left of the sprint. Mm-hmm. And even still, I might be dragging more riders with me.
So Scott, another question I had was from right in this point, and You mentioned kind of you start jumping when you see other red numbers on this course. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? I mean, if somebody hits a red number right here, are you going, or what are you looking at?
No, because we're going pretty quick right here. And I know if they hit right now, there's still a long enough runway to me to close to them. But now that I see somebody go and we're within like the 20 seconds before the line, I know I have to go if I'm going to close down because I want to stay in their draft as long as possible and accelerate through towards the finish line. And so that's kind of my goal is when I sprint is just, stay with the wheel, and know that my power numbers are hopefully high enough to get me across and through them rather than just kind of being stuck on their wheel.
All right, so let's go through our key takeaways. Number one, strategic placement at the front. Scott, or Devin, excuse me, why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, I think Scott said it perfectly earlier, and he played it perfectly in the race. Was just how he positioned his avatar through the bike, coming around that last turn, and then leading up to the line. He talked about how difficult it is to gauge where that sprint is. It's so long, you never really know when people are going to go. But he played it perfect, strategically placing himself in the perfect place and towards the front. So he was able to leash that 1100 watt sprint at the perfect time and take it.
Love it. Number two, don't be afraid of the leg snapper. Scott had this point. What did you mean by that?
It's a lot easier said than done. A lot of riders kind of psych themselves out when they know the Innsbruckring course is on their schedule. A lot of the bigger races they go up at 5 times and they they curse it as they know it's coming. And I think they can mentally kind of psych themselves out because of the effort that's going to require. And so, my mentality is I'm going to attack this leg snapper. It's going to last 45 seconds. It's going to be terrible, but I know my effort's there. I know my ability to get over the top is there, and just don't fear it rather than, I'm going to attack it with everything I got because I know I can recover on the downhill.
Love it. Kind of leading into that, keep your effort over the leg snapper, get into a super tuck, kind of what you were just talking about, Scott, right?
Yeah, again, it's a 45-second effort to get to the top. And if you ease off the gas just a little bit towards as you're cresting, it's easier or it's harder for you to maintain your momentum down on the downhill. And so that's when gaps can open up and that's when, the breaks happen. So if you can just kind of wait a second or two longer to get over the top, you're going to be in such a better position and you're going to be able to recover better because you're in the draft, you're in the super tuck, you're not spinning your legs at all, and you're just it's done and you can now worry about, the next one or the sprint that's coming up. So just make sure you take that extra second or two to get over the top in a good spot and let the draft of the blob just take you down to the bottom.
Without further ado, that's the end of the episode. Thank you everybody for watching. Before we go, Scott, do you have anything you want to talk about? Anything to promote?
Nothing to promote. The guys over at Race 3R, we already have some great series going on. Devin's race that we showcased was the Sundown race. And again, to his point, I love the fact that we have an A+ cat. It just makes the races so much better. There's not 150, 170 riders at once. And so the guys at Race 3 are doing a great job. We have some exciting announcements coming up over with our group. You'll see those announcements coming up in the next week or so. So a lot of great things happening in e-racing, a lot of great things happening on Zwift. We're excited to see what can become of it. And yeah, we love the platform. We love what it's helped us become. It's helped my fitness tremendously, and I've really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Awesome. How about you, Devin? Anything? Streams, Instagram, MySpace?
No, you can check me out on YouTube. I started my streaming, and You can see me. I think there's 3 weeks left on the Sundown series, so I'm going to finish up the great series put on by the boys at 3R. My team, Relentless, we just started. We have a race starting on Saturday mornings. It's called Into the Red. So check it out Saturday mornings.
What time is it at?
It's 7:45 Eastern. So
Eastern in the United States. Okay, and you'll find a link down below to Devin's stream, so you can check him out. 7:45 Easterns, I bet, on Saturday morning.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you both, and thanks everybody for watching.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Zwifters, thanks a lot for watching. Really appreciate it. If you missed part 1, go ahead and click right up here and you can check it out. This Thursday, we'll be putting out the next WTRL course preview. Please hit like and subscribe below if you want to see more videos. Thanks a lot. See you next time.